Welcome into America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates. Securities offered through Peak Brokerage Services, LLC. Advisory services offered through the Retirement Guys Formula, registered investment advisor. America's Retirement Headquarters, America's Medicare Associates, and the Retirement Guys Formula are separate and independent entities from Peak Brokerage Services, LLC.
Welcome you into, and thank you so much for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Scott Kerschner and Dave Ross. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. Once again, that's 419-794-3030. You can find them online, find out more about the team, and schedule a time to speak with them at arhq.com. My name is Chris Swan. Today on the show, the Fed is poised to start cutting interest rates, but how many cuts are we actually going to see this year? We've got a message if you're one of those people planning to work forever, and how to figure out how much you're going to need in retirement. All this and more. But before we dive into any of it, let me check in. Scott, Dave, glad to be with you guys. How you doing today?
Chris, good to talk to you again. Dave, thanks for coming on the show today with me. Nolan is actually traveling. I don't know if you remember, but he mentioned, I think last week on the show, that he was actually heading to, Pittsburgh, and then Philadelphia, and then Washington, going to pick up a couple of hockey games with his son over spring break. So he's doing a little traveling. So it looks like we're the lucky ones to get to hang out here, right?
Working hard, playing hard. That's what Nolan and the entire team does, honestly. And so we hope that as you get ready to enter into retirement, that's what you guys do too. You know, you spent your working career accumulating and saving and reaping the fruits of your labor. That's what it's all about with the proper plan. And the team at America's Retirement Headquarters can help out with that. Let's start by talking about something that is not necessarily as fun. We all know taxes, specifically the returns for last year. They're due on April 15th. That is a Monday, if you're keeping track, by the way, in case you need to do some weekend planning. But there is another deadline that falls on the same day. It's the last day you can contribute to an IRA and have it decrease your 2023 tax bill. Do you remind clients about this as a part of your overall tax planning?
You know, I know a year ago we talked about this same time we talked about something similar to this. And Dave, I'll tell you what, this time of year, taxes is one thing that absolutely just makes my stress level go off the charts. You know, you saw me running around like crazy during AEP. You know, I had 40, 50 appointments a week, and I love that. But taxes for me is just one of these things. I don't know why. It just really makes my blood boil, and it gets me all fired up. But one of the things this year that we're actually doing, and it kind of is exactly with this, is we are actually making some contributions for 2023. You know, one of the things we're doing that I work with is the HSA, the house savings accounts, right? You can contribute to a house savings account for the prior year if you haven't maximized that distribution or that contribution. So I know that it's not just the house savings accounts that you can do this with. You can do this with several other accounts, right?
Absolutely. IRAs are something that people need to have a discussion about, because not only traditional IRAs, which create tax deductions right off of your adjusted gross income, but even doing some Roth conversions if taxes aren't such an immediate concern. But I will tell you this, I will chime in on the tax thing. Clients' taxes are front and center. Mm-hmm. Dave Ross and the Ross family taxes, those are like last in line. And so you just you grin and bear it. And I tell my wife, I said, it looks like we're filing an extension. And she's never happy about it. But you know what? It is what it is. And the phone tends to ring a lot more during tax time. But coming back to the discussion of taking advantage of tax ideas that can help you lower your taxable income, there's nothing better than to start with funding an IRA. In 2023, you can put $6,500 a year into an IRA. If you're over the age of 50, you can put in an additional $1,000 for $7,500. In 2024, it goes to $7,000 for an under 50 and $8,000 for a 50 plus. So I would say with all of these changes in the amounts that you can invest and can put aside for retirement, it's important to get ahead of it because you know what? $1,000 over a lot of years of savings, that adds up to a lot if your investment returns are good. So, yeah, your advisors should be having these discussions, and we certainly are having those with all of our people. And if you aren't having those discussions, then maybe now's the time to give us a call and let us help you out.
You know, I know that Nolan talks about the tax roadmap, and you know, I hear Chaz talk about that too. And I'm sure that what they go through with this is this very issue right here, right? You know, with the HSAs that I deal with, you know, that lowers your reportable income right off the top. And, you know, those are, they're phenomenal tools that you can utilize those resources for any health bills or anything that may come up. So there are several advantages to that. But like with the Roth IRAs, right, you can contribute or do a rollover into a Roth. You're going to pay taxes on it now, right? And the 2025 is when they're scheduled to have the tax rollbacks. So now is a great time to be looking at doing that conversion or rolling into a Roth. You know, you pay your taxes on it now at the lower tax rate. And this is one thing that every time I listen to Nolan or you, Dave, or Chaz, or anybody that's actually working with these, I mean, it just makes sense to me. You put the money in, you pay the tax on it when you put it in, and if that account, you know, let's say you've got a $50,000 account in there, and that grows over time to $75,000, and you pull that money out, you don't pay tax on any of it, right? I mean, that $25,000 gain comes to you tax-free because you paid taxes when you put the money in. You know, all of you listeners out there, that just makes sense to me. And I'm not the brightest guy when it comes to investments, but Dave, I mean, we do this all day long. You do, right?
Well, let me add this. So now you're required by the federal government to start taking required minimum distributions from qualified retirement plans like 401ks, IRAs, by April 1st after the year you turn 73. Well, I have clients who basically don't need those retirement funds. Wouldn't we all like to be in that position?
Right.
But here's the thing. If they were to start Roth converting, let's say you've got a 65-year-old that doesn't need the money but can start doing Roth conversions, they could essentially convert a lot of their IRA assets over an 8-year period and spread that tax out over that entire time. And then by the time they turn 73, guess what? None of their IRA, or a very small amount of their IRA, is required to be distributed. And every dollar that comes out is federal income tax free. That is pretty good planning. So some people who are saying, oh, I don't need that retirement money today, maybe they should be thinking about it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I did not know that until you just mentioned that. That just makes it even a better plan, and I love that option. So if any of you out there are listening and you want to know more about any of these, we're here available. You can reach our office, give us a call, and we'd be happy to set these up for you.
Again, the number is 419-794-3030. Obviously, first and foremost, don't forget about tax deadline, April 15th. It is important to make sure that you pay as little in the taxes that you owe for 2023, and hopefully some of these strategies contributing to an HSA, the IRA contribution can help minimize that. But it's not just about what you owe or the taxes that you have to owe for last year, but the years to come, 20, 30 years, and that is where that tax roadmap comes into play, not just about the taxes that exist now, but the potential taxes down the line. The team can walk you through the process and make sure it is as tax savvy, as advantageous to you, and less to Uncle Sam as possible. 419-794-3030 to begin the planning process, or go to the website, and that's arhq.com. Senator Bernie Sanders is catching attention over a bill he recently introduced. It would set a, get this guys, 32-hour work week as the standard over 4 years with no reduction in pay. Shark Tank's Kevin O'Leary, he had plenty to say about that recently on Fox Business.
There are bad ideas, there are very bad ideas, and there are very, very, very bad ideas. And then there are ideas that are so bad they're un-American. This is an insane idea. It's never going to happen. We're the #1 economy on earth for a reason. A third of the population strives to be entrepreneurial. There is no life-work balance when you're an entrepreneur, when you start your business. You do that to achieve financial freedom. That is the American dream. That's what my entrepreneurs do every day. I tell them, if you don't come in on Saturday, don't even bother coming in on Sunday.
And I'm not saying that Kevin is wrong here, but he is the same guy who a couple weeks ago was saying that you need at least $8 million saved up towards.
Right.
I digress. But isn't that a lot like retirement? We work 40-plus hours a week, hoping to find that life balance after we leave the job. How does creating and carrying out a plan help with that transition?
Well, the first thing I'll address is good old Bernie Sanders, right? In a previous life, I worked at Toledo Trust, downtown Toledo, back in the 80s. And they actually came out with a program where we would work 3 12-hour shifts. So I would work 3 days, 12 hours at a time. And then I would be off for 4 days, right? That was pretty cool. Like I kind of liked that. But you got to remember, I was in my early 20s when I was doing that. So you work 36 hours, you got paid for 40, but we had people swinging, covering every day of the shift. The problem with that is, with what they're proposing, the 32-hour, and Dave, you and I were talking about this before we started this segment. A lot of the older people that are working, like you and I, for example, I don't punch a time clock, and I never work 40 hours. It's more like 48, 50 hours. I mean, it's like I'm almost constantly on the clock. This past weekend, I was sitting at home and had a computer on. My son comes over, and he says, "Dad, are you really working right now?" And it was, Sunday afternoon. I go, "Yeah, it's the weather's terrible outside. It's cold. I can't go out and mow the yard, so I'm working." So people that are working longer in life aren't punching a time clock, like you said. And, the 32 hours, I think they're setting themselves up for the younger generation to say, hey, it's the clock struck 5 and I'm out of here. They're turning their PCs and that off 15 minutes prior. But, the 40-hour work week is something that I think is there for some people and other people not so much. But, like Kevin said, how do you have that balance, that finding a work life and retirement balance? I deal with a lot of people that are looking to retire. And one of the things that these people come in and they talk about it, the spouse may want them to retire, but they don't necessarily want to. And it's a way of life for a lot of people, So, yeah, we kind of help them get things figured out as far as their finances and put things together that are going to give them a written retirement plan and get them moving through retirement so they can start doing some of the things that they wanted to do and try to manage that balance, which is very, very hard. You're living it, as am I. What do you have to add to that, Dave?
Well, I would say that, for me, speaking totally for me, my vision of Dave Ross retirement is I'll work from 8 until noon, and then I'll tee off at 12:30 when the weather's nice.
Exactly.
So, I don't see myself basically saying, I'm done with this. I don't want to do it anymore. In a perfect world, I would have clients. I would have a purpose for every day to come in and do something. But my balance is I'm going to do things with my wife, who can retire in a couple years as a teacher. We will have that. But you know what? When you enjoy what you're doing, why hang it up? I mean, I don't know why you would just say, I don't want to do this anymore, because we enjoy it, we're good at it, and it is what it is. So
yeah, I had a client that actually came in last week, and he went to one of my events, and he's turning 65 here in July, as a matter of fact. And we got to talking, and he's in great health. And I said, well, when do you anticipate retirement? He says, boy, you know what? I don't know, 70, probably somewhere between 70 and 72, right? So his balance for him is exactly what you said. He loves what he does. He's not out in the elements. He's not beating his body up. He's actually doing a job that he thoroughly enjoys. It's not hard. He's making a nice living. So he's going to put that off as long as he can. Now, one of the things that is kind of like our responsibility, and you know, Nolan Baker and the team here, is trying to get people properly positioned to be able to do that, right? And I think that is probably the most important thing. You know, like Kevin O'Leary says, you know, if you work and have the resources available to retire, you can find a lot easier way to get that balance worked out. If you don't have the resources available, then you may not have a choice, but you have to keep working.
But it's not to say that your plans can't change down the line. We all know, you know, new hobbies being developed, or certainly wanting to travel more, or maybe there's a new family member, a new grandchild on the way that you want to spend more time with. So having a plan that not just gets you to retirement, but through retirement for whatever may come down the line. And, you know, we hope that, like Dave, you know, and like so many out there, you do truly love what you want to do. And maybe you don't plan on retiring anytime soon. We hope that's the case. Hope you get to work as long as you choose to. Occasionally that's taken out of your hands. Sometimes you just wake up one day and decide you don't want to do it anymore. If you have a plan in place already, I think that decision becomes a lot easier to make, and it seems like a lot less panic all in all, whether it is that phased retirement, whether it is just clocking out for the last time at 65 and then enjoying whatever it is. You need to have a plan. The team at America's Retirement Headquarters can help you craft and maintain that plan. 419-794-3030 is how it gets started, and the website is arhq.com. Now, guys, at the tail end of last year and for the better part of this year, there's been a lot of speculation on how many times the Federal Reserve is going to cut interest rates this year. Wall Street says 3, starting in June, and economist Stephen Stanley tells CNBC what he's betting is going to happen.
I have them moving later than where most people think. I don't think they get started until November. So I only have 2 this year, but then, you know, quite a number next year. I think they will cut pretty steadily next year. It looks like the Fed, so far so good. I mean, I think we still have a ways to go on inflation. So it's too soon to declare victory, but I don't think we're going to have a recession.
So now it seems that some are trying to time what the Fed is going to do. What is the game plan at the Retirement Guys formula? What do you recommend for those that have a lot of money in those high interest fixed income accounts?
Well, you know, Dave, I'm going to let you handle this, but, you know, one of the things that I want to interject here is, you know, with the interest rates the way they're at right now, we've seen a big influx of people investing into the money market type accounts and taking advantage. And I know I've said in a previous segment about HSAs and how I'm a big fan of them. I love them. You know, now is the time when these interest rates are still high is to maximize your funding into these accounts. Like an HSA is like a money market account, and you're getting some really nice returns on those investments that you put in there. But you know, I don't know. You know, I see based on kind of what I see, and I'm not in your lane. I don't do what you guys do, but boy, based on what I see with these interest rates, I would say probably 3 this year. I agree with Stephen later, and maybe 2 or 3 this year, and then you may see a bigger change in next year. Dave, add what you can to that.
The comment I would make right off the top is with Stephen Stanley saying 2 cuts, first one in November. To me, all they're talking about is they want to delay all of it till after the election or right at the time of the election, because let's face it, the Democrats would love to cut rates and have people happy with their pocketbooks, and that could potentially mean votes in the November election. And quite honestly, being a supposed non-political entity, the Fed should not be running a political agenda.
Right.
But I would also tell you that when interest rates get cut, that usually is a great assistance to the stock market. The stock market usually melts higher when interest rates get cut. You add that with an election cycle, which is another catalyst. It usually propels the market higher. You've got 2 major catalysts. So I am not buying the theory that there's going to be a mild recession. But I could understand that if I'm retiring, if I was going to retire in less than a year, and I could make 5% in a Charles Schwab brokerage account in cash, why wouldn't I do that?
Exactly.
Because you can minimize your risk. You take market risk right out of it and just say, okay, I'm happy with what I have. I want to hold on to it. And then when I retire, I can start drawing from it. But the market, I don't think we're in a bubble. I don't think things are overvalued. I think there's still plenty of value in this market. So I think when the Fed does act on rates, it will be a positive development. You know, I don't know about you, Scott, but what if you were thinking about buying a house now and taking on a mortgage?
Oh, I know. Right now it's crazy. But here's the thing, Dave. That's actually happening. I mean, there were 2 houses in the neighborhood where we're at, and both of them sold. Now, I didn't see them sell at the asking price like, you know, a lot of these houses in the past year or so were selling over asking price. I don't see that happening anymore. But, yeah, I'm with you. There's no way that I would want to be buying a house right now. But, you know, you get these rates coming down, and I think you're going to see an influx in that as well. So, well, Dave, what kind of a game plan would you recommend for someone who's sitting on, you know, a lot of cash in these high interest, you know, these Charles Schwab accounts that you're talking about? What kind of advice would you give them right now, knowing that you're going to see some rates dropping?
Well, I think the bottom line is it comes down to what is your tolerance for risk and how long do you have until you're going to need that money. And if you've got, let's say you've got a 3-year or longer time horizon, you should still be invested in the market. Because you know what? If you look at major indexes like the S&P 500, half of the returns come from the yields, the dividends that are paid by those S&P 500 companies. The yield environment is good. Fixed interest is good. But if I can collect, let's say if I have a dividend stock paying portfolio and I can collect 3 to 4% on that and still be able to get 5+% on growth, I would be remiss to not be doing that. And I think the market, I still say there's opportunities in this market for growth, and you need to be positioned. If I was retiring at the end of 2024, yeah, I think I would be pretty skeptical and say, you know what, I'm going to take that 5% that they're paying and just put it in my pocket.
Yeah, and that's always an option, right? You know, like Chris, like you said at the end of the last segment, you know, things change and things are ever changing in the investment world, and you know, having the right people in your back pocket to help you navigate through that's important, and that's what we do here.
People like the team at America's Retirement Headquarters, you know, because we all know the importance and the value of compound growth, you know, letting interest and things compound over time. There's the downside to that. The other side of it is compounding your losses and withdrawing money from a down market. That is when things can be pretty skeptical. It's a guessing game, right? We can't control when the Fed is going to cut rates. We can't control how the market is going to react. What we can do is have a plan in place to say, if this happens, then we're going to do X. If this happens, then we're going to do, you know, knowing that all these variables are going to happen, maybe not necessarily this year, but over the course of that 20, 30-year retirement, it is something that is bound to happen, and there's going to be multiple elections. There's going to be tax increases down the line. All these things coming into play and creating a plan around that to navigate you through it. The team at America's Retirement Headquarters, like we said, they can help you with that to get started for whatever may come down the line. 419-794-3030, or the website is arhq.com. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just put out new numbers that show the average American household needs just over $6,000 to meet their monthly expenses. Guys, when you meet with your clients, is that a common number you see, or do people need more or less in retirement? And follow up real quick, when factoring in Social Security, how attainable is that number?
You know, Dave, you and I have worked on several claims together. We've kind of done the tag team approach, so to speak, and you know, and that's what I love about being here with the team is how we work together and come up with these numbers and these factors. And I know one of the things that I run into quite frequently is, you know, you sign up for Medicare on the Social Security website. So that always poses questions to me, and they'll ask, well, should I sign up for Social Security now, or should I wait, or so I go through the process that we usually go through, and I ask them some questions to kind of get a flavor for what they're looking for Social Security to accomplish for them. But one of the things I always tell them, and I usually send them home with homework, and I'll tell them, here's what you need to figure out. How much money do you need a month? Because a lot of people, you don't even think about that number, right? When you're working like we are right now, we're getting that paycheck and we're making that money and we're paying the bills and we're enjoying life and we're doing what we do. But when you have to really start to sit down and think and put the numbers to paper, they ask a lot. I ask them, what do you need? And they really don't know. So, you go through a tabulation of bills and what can you cut and what, things are going to be different in retirement. You may not be driving to work. If you get a half hour or 45-minute drive, you're not going to have that expenses. If you park in a parking garage at the office or whatever, there's a lot of things that are going to change when you are actually in retirement and not working and not going out to lunch or, whatever you do when you were working may change. How do you advise them and help them come up with that number? And is 6,000 what you see?
Each discussion is individualized and everyone's personal situation factors in, so it's not a one size fits all or one size fits most. It's very tailored and most importantly, it needs to be flexible because things do change. If I retired today, I'm in good health. What happens in a year if something happens to my health and I can't work or I can only work half as much? And when you start looking at what that number is, do you need the Social Security to get to that number? Can you use your retirement funds without touching the Social Security, trying to max it out at age 70? All of those things factor in. And I would say that from my perspective as an advisor, we want to leave flexibility in there. So if a person has a retirement age of 68 on Social Security, we get to 68. If they don't need the money, then we try to get to 69.
Sure.
If we get to 69, we don't need it, then guess what? We get to 70 and we've optimized that benefit.
Yep.
And that is the best case scenario because Social Security is whatever decision you make, it's final, it's irrevocable, it's for the rest of your life. So it's a very important decision. It should not be taken lightly.
Yeah, you may have to cut out your Netflix or your morning trip to the designer coffee shop, right? But you have to have some sort of an idea. And if you're, I do run across a lot of people that can rattle that number off right off the top of their head, because they're preparing for it. We're looking to retire. We've kind of put some things in place. We've got a good idea what we're looking for. And you ask them, well, how much are you going to need a month to pay the bills and to live the lifestyle you want? Because that's important as well. You can cut out a bunch of the fat, so to speak, in your monthly spending. But are you going to be a hermit and just sit around and do nothing? Or do you want to go out and enjoy and do things? That's one of the things that I'll say is, with Nolan and the independent income system, I think is a phenomenal plan that he's put together. And, setting aside these buckets of money, like you said, Dave, if your health changes, I quoted in the last couple of weeks prescription drug costs for a few of the clients that I'm dealing with. And they're on some very expensive drugs. One of them was over, $3,500. In fact, you and I met with a client, and if I remember correctly, she was paying somewhere upwards to $4,000 in prescription drug costs a year. Yeah. And that money is coming out of her investments, right? Correct. I mean, yes. In her situation, I think her husband passed away, and now she's working with you on her investments, and that money's coming out of her investments. And that's why you hooked her up with me in, trying to help her see if there's a better plan. The unfortunate thing is we weren't able to help her right now, but during AEP is when we're really going to be able to put a better game plan together. You probably have several clients in that situation. Would you not agree?
You know what else I would say? I think in the old days when people all had pensions,
Yeah.
it was so easy to say, okay, this is my number. This is what my pension's going to be. This is what my Social Security is going to be. Can I live on that? And if you had a dual income household, you had that times 2 people. But today, pensions are becoming a thing of the past.
Right.
You have your 401k. They're not offering pensions. And a lot of companies that offer pensions, they're trying to get out of them by offering you a cash payment sweetener to say, okay, I don't need that pension benefit. Pension plans are expensive. And I would say that because of the lack of pensions or the diminishing number of them, it makes coming up with that number a little bit more difficult, a little harder.
Sure. Yeah, and that makes perfect sense.
I will say this, talking about the numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it does say the average American household needs that $6,000 mark. You may have been listening and said, I can't get by on just that much, or, how am I possibly going to, get to that much? Well, here's the thing, average. It's not necessarily going to work for everybody out there. What's most important is the number that you need for your retirement and how to get to that number. Maybe it is largely to Social Security. Maybe you've got a lot of assets out there, and you can delay taking the Social Security to just let that money accumulate so that your benefit is larger down the line. But you don't know until you sit down with a team like America's Retirement Headquarters, run those numbers, figure out what is going to work best for you. To do that, you can go to the website. That's arhq.com. Find out more about the entire team at America's Retirement Headquarters. Also schedule a time there as well. Or you can just give a call right now, and that's 419-794-3030. Now, one of the writers for The Motley Fool says she is intentionally not factoring in Social Security as part of her retirement income. That way, whatever she gets in benefits, it's just going to be extra. Guys, what are your thoughts on this? Is that going a little too far, or do you think there's legitimately some merit to her way of thinking?
Well, the last segment we did was talking kind of a little bit about this very thing, right? And it's like what you said, Dave. If you can afford to put that off, then you can afford to look at it as a bonus, right? And I actually did a proposal for someone a week ago, and I was working with this client, and they were talking about their Social Security and whether or not they should take it. And it came down to the very, very premise of this topic. I said, well, do you need it? And the guy says, well, not really. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to have, but I don't necessarily need that. So we were able to develop a plan for them to put it off. But one of the things, if you look at it as a bonus, it's kind of like that unexpected income, right? And I've talked to some advisors. We got an advisor, Terry Eisert's been on our program before, and he's a big fan of, if it works for you, he's a huge fan of taking Social Security sooner than later and totally investing that entire Social Security check on a monthly basis. Well, it has to work for you for that to be the case, because if you're working, that's not going to work because you're making more than the income test threshold, which is, I think, $22,340 if you take it prior to full retirement age. But if you can afford to invest that, it is truly a bonus, And I think a lot of people, when they look at it, the reason why they look at it as a bonus is because, they think that Social Security is not going to be there. It's going to be different than what they originally signed up for. So a lot of people take that into account and decide whether or not they're going to take it. As far as looking at it as a bonus, what do you have to add to that, Dave?
Well, I would say this. The key thing is, what is your full retirement age? Once you get to the full retirement age, and for me, that's 66 years and 8 months. Once I get to that point, I can earn all kinds of money.
Sure.
and not get smoked on taxes because of going over that threshold. But I would say this. I have a wife who's an educator. She will never be able to collect my Social Security because she's going to collect a government pension. So should I invest the should I look at investing the Social Security? Should I look at using the Social Security to purchase a life insurance policy that provides a tax-free death benefit to her? She's going to outlive me by a lot of years. And so I am not remiss in terms of I want to see if I've worked hard to earn the Social Security benefit, I want her to reap the benefits of those years of work. So, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. Every person's situation's a little bit different. And do you have the wherewithal to be able to take it out to 70? I will say this. If they do the cut in 2033 that they're saying, a 20% cut, I would rather have a 20% cut based on a maximized benefit versus just think about the person that turns it on at 62.
Sure.
Collects that same amount, and then they get a 20%. That could be a catch-22.
Well, it
for
could be
those
life-changing.
folks.
I mean, you would possibly in that situation have to figure out where some of the income is going to come from, and by the time that happens, if you've already taken it at 62, you may be put in a situation where you're not able to go back to work or to start recovering some of that, right?
That's right.
The other thing to keep in mind, and I don't know why this is, there's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about real quick here. For some crazy reason, over the past two weeks, I have had a run on Medicare clients that are dual eligible. And what that simply means is they're eligible for Medicaid and Medicare. And I've had probably 10 clients call me up and say, we're losing our Medicaid status. I'm not real sure exactly why. In 30 years, I have not had this happen like I've had it happen in the last 2 weeks. Part of the problem is some of these people are now taking their Social Security, which is increasing their income, which is dropping or causing them to lose their Medicaid benefits, which puts them in a totally different classification. So, that's something else that people want to look at too. If you can afford to not take your benefits and put them off. I've got several clients, we do, it's genetics, right? We talk about genetics all the time, Dave. And I had a lady in just this past Friday that said her mother is 93 years old and she's still driving. I said, she's driving at 93? She said, yeah, she's still driving. Well, at 93 years old, she's got some good genetics there, right? There's some good genes. Taking Social Security at 70 is going to maximize your benefits. And if you live to be 93 years old, you've got 23 years at that higher maximized benefit amount. So, if you have questions about this and you want to know more, if you want to figure out how can you start treating your Social Security as a bonus, schedule a time to come in, give us a call, 419-794-3030, and get on Dave's schedule, get on Nolan's or whoever at the office you work with right now, and ask questions about this, because this is something that treating it as a bonus is a good thing.
I'll go on the record now, and I'm one of those people that I'm still a good ways away from retirement. We'll give out my age on the air. But I'm not banking on Social Security being there in the capacity that it is right now. A reduction in benefits down the line almost seems inevitable. And if that does happen and you've already started claiming Social Security, what are you going to do to replace that income? That is another thing the team at America's Retirement Headquarters could do for you. That Social Security risk score, run that for you, show you what it'll look like if there is a reduction in benefits, maybe find a way to replace that income if it does get cut by the government. It is all part of that planning process, not just figuring out when to turn on Social Security, but what to do if there is that reduction of benefits down the line. Once again, that number is 419-794-3030, or you could also go to the website as well and find out more about upcoming events. over there on the website, and that is arhq.com. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, blame their parents. A recent poll found people who don't follow the rules of the road, they're more likely to have parents who don't either. The top bad driving habit that we inherit is speeding. On the other hand, the top good habit that gets passed down is always using turn signals. I know people who are very guilty of not doing that. Did you pick up any good financial habits from your parents? And how about the habits that taught you what not to do?
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. So I did inherit some driving habits from my dad specifically. And one of the things he would always say is he would refer to what he thought was a bad driver as a dumb bunny. And it was always like, that dumb bunny. And because he never really ever swore or anything like that, but that was his way of yelling at that person that he didn't particularly care for their driving. When I read this topic, I'm like, oh no, my kids are learning some of these driving habits from me, and I don't know that that's the best thing either. But I know when we were on a break, Dave and Travis were talking about somebody driving in a baseball game, and I remember my mom had a minivan, and she was taking my daughter to softball practice, and my son was in the car, and it was at City Park in Perrysburg, and she couldn't turn around, so she drove right down the sidewalk. And my kids still remember that, still to this day. But, so those were driving habits that probably aren't the best thing. But, when I look at this topic, I remember some specific things that my parents mentioned to me and even to my kids. One of them, my mom told my son, stay away from girls, they're expensive. And he's realizing that right now. But one of the big things is give every dollar a job, So the good thing is to make sure that, every dollar that you have is actually working for you. That's something that I hear from Nolan a lot is, you want to make sure that you have your dollars working for you. When you wake up in the morning, your dollars are already hard at work. So that's one thing. Make saving an easy habit. Take that extra money and put that aside. One of the things that I remember my mom would always say is take 50% of your paycheck and put it in a savings account. I remember back in the day. Remember Christmas clubs? When you used to create these Christmas clubs. Chris, I don't even know if you know what those are. You may. I don't want to.
I can't say that I do.
Okay, well, back in the day, they used to have what was called Christmas clubs, where you could actually set up an account, and it was nothing more than a savings account, but they titled it Christmas, so it made you feel better about saving. And then, and in November, you pull all that money out and you go do your Christmas shopping with that.
Okay.
It's creating these accounts and making savings an easy habit, which was something that did, every day. Here's a big one. Learn investing basics. I can honestly say, I'm fortunate that my son works here with us because he's learning a lot about this without me having to actually tell him this. But I don't ever remember my parents talking to me at all about investment basics or what kind of plans. I remember actually telling my dad when he was at Chrysler, they first came out with these 401k investment plans, and I was in banking at the time, and I said, Dad, absolutely, you want to do that, put money aside. And it's a good thing that he did because it's now paying off and helping Mom. These are some of the things that I remember and some of the things that I wanted to point out. Dave, give us some of yours.
Warren Buffett, I know he gets quoted a lot, but one of his most famous quotes is, spend the money that's left after you've put funds away on your savings. In other words, the way I would describe it is pay yourself first. You get a paycheck, you put a percentage of it into a savings device or an investment device, and then You spend what's left if you need to spend it all, which most people do not. But you know what? With young kids, and I've spent a lot of time teaching financial literacy in school systems, and I don't think it's too early for kids to ever start saving money. And the thing I'm finding, especially as I work through with high school age kids, a lot of those kids have jobs.
Sure.
So you know what? They should be putting some money in that 5% Charles Schwab account. Mm-hmm. And then you know what? At the end of the year, if they have a couple $1,000s in that account, maybe they take 250 of it and put it in their Roth IRA. Because you know what? If you think about starting to be an investor at the age of 16, 17 years old.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter how much you're saving. It's going to be a bonanza for you because you get into the habit of doing it. And, you know, my parents didn't tell me a lot about finance, and I learned a lot about the financial world when my father passed away at a young age, and I had to help my mother when I was in college. I had to help her, and so I was forced to learn about this kind of stuff at a pretty young age, and it kind of steered me in the direction of financial services. But this is all very important for kids and for people to just earmark a percentage of what they make. You know what? Think about it, Scott. If you had put 10 cents of every dollar that you ever earned into an investment, how much money would you have?
Oh, yeah. A lot more than I do.
10
I can
cents.
tell you that, yeah.
There is something that kind of indirectly that I have taught my son, and it is he's 8, by the way. It is taxes, specifically the dad tax. You know, when you go pick up food for him, or you make him a sandwich. You know, all those fries that are on your plate, they're not all yours. You got to pay the dad tax. You got to get some of that, some of those chips. He doesn't necessarily understand that one, but this is one that I think has landed with him, and it is not just financial advice. It is advice in general. Whenever he is curious about something and he asks me a question, I've mentioned this before, I've learned the importance of being able to say, I don't know, but let's find out together. So here's the thing. You may not necessarily know when to claim Social Security or what your risk tolerance is or how you're going to take on the taxes that are going to come down the line in the next couple of years, let alone, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And that is okay. Just know where to turn. Might I suggest the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. You can find out more about them at arhq.com. You can schedule a time to speak with them as well. Or you can give a call, set up a time, and start putting a plan in place. Start answering those questions you may not know the answer to. 419-794-3030. Once again, that's 419-794-3030. Want to thank you, as we always do, for joining us here on the show, spending some time with us here on America's Retirement Headquarters. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Gentlemen, always appreciate the time. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final word.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And Dave, thank you for joining me today. One thing I want to wrap up with is if you are turning 65, you have the opportunity to sign up for Medicare. All of the Medicare enrollment periods have ended. The last one was ended on the 31st. So we are right now helping people turning 65. So if you need anything with Medicare, think of America's Medicare Associates. If you need any other help with investments or estate planning or anything else we might be able to help you with, think of America's Retirement Headquarters. And once again, thank you all for listening. Join us every Saturday at Toledo's #1 talk radio show, WSPB.
America's Retirement Headquarters is located at 1700 Woodlands Drive in Maumee, Ohio. You can reach them by calling 419-794-3030 or online at americasretirementheadquarters.com. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Nolan Baker is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstance. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Nolan Baker, Ohio Insurance License Number 27787.